Hi guys, it's a spicy cetacean here. We're going to do another episode of Analyzing Kent Hovind's Body Language, and grab your comfort substance of choice and buckle up because this is going to be a doozy. So we're going to be pretty light on the body language today because I have been doing a bit of background research that I want to share with y'all, and I think it's going to be heavy. I'm going to have trigger warnings so that you can stop the video. They're going to be at the end, so we'll do the body language part first, and then we'll get into some of the heavier stuff. So if you want to skip, I'm going to have plenty of opportunity for you to back out and not be part of the discussion that we're going to have. Today we are going to be talking about, not in too much graphic detail, but Kent himself actually goes into some detail of domestic violence / violence towards children. That is, of course, not what Kent Hovind calls it, and he just calls it spanking. Even though the American Academy of Pediatrics has come out against spanking, I believe the WHO has come out against spanking, and definitely the United Nations has come out against, very, very against spanking. It is a form of violence against children, and we will be discussing that later. So be mindful, take whatever self-care steps you need to take care of before joining, during, after, whatever you need. I've got coffee in my favorite Princess Leia mug, R.I.P. Carrie Fisher. I'll have a link. This is one of my favorite potters, by the way, Polly Studios. I'll have a link for them in the description because they have some of the best mugs. The handle is big enough for my whole hand and then some. Like, I could fit some extra fingers in there. And if you have as many mugs as I do, this is a big deal. Anyhow, that's the lighthearted topic. On to Kent Hovind. So same format as last time. I have picked out a couple of clips. The only difference this time is I have not listened to the audio ahead of time. I picked out the clips based on body language, and I don't know what the audio says. So I am going to be reacting to the audio for the first time, except in a specific part. And when we get there, it'll be clear that I know what the audio says. So I have clips. The first one is not going to have any sound, where we're just going to look at the body language, and then we'll listen again with the audio, and we'll listen again. We'll watch again and listen to the audio for the second time around. Here we go. Our first clip. For some quick context, this is another one of Kent's older seminars that he's doing. It looks like it's in a church. There is an audience. We'll see a couple of clips of B-roll kind of interspersed of the audience throughout. And I just want you all to keep in mind that the stuff that we do hear later, he's comfortable talking about in front of a group of people. And we'll give that some additional context later. So anyway, the first clip, here we go. That was really quick, but important. Remembering from our last video, our baseline video with Kent Hovind, most of his big gestures are likely planned or rehearsed or conscious. One of those three. The jacket button, I only watched 45 minutes of an hour and 15 seminar. I'm not watching any longer than I really, really need to, especially when the topic is what it is. Did not mean to do that. Let's watch the video. Okay, it was quick but crucial. Like we mentioned before in the first video about his baseline, all of his movements are planned, conscious, rehearsed, one of those three things. The jacket button is likely not. It's a smaller gesture. It's almost, I'm fairly confident that he didn't realize he was doing it. I'm pretty sure this is another thing where he's kind of leaking some information about what's in his head. And I'll play it again because it was really short. Watch him go for that jacket button. He doesn't do anything with it. He's just adjusting. And it's in an interesting spot on his body. It's in front of his abdomen, which we also talked about last time is a crucial area where a lot of our vital organs are, and we want to, protect that. So let's listen to the audio, even though I know it's short.
It's the way I always fall, Mom. You ever know?
Mom. Interesting. Another clip from his past, specifically his mom. So if you'll remember from my last video, we talked about the jacket buttoning, and it's not really a buttoning or unbuttoning of his jacket. It's kind of more of a self-soothing type of gesture. I think he's got a lot of either anxiety or self-consciousness around the memory of his mom. And I'm going to dig into that a little bit more later, but the fact that he's talking about mom in this clip to me is significant, along with the guarding of the center area / buttoning / self-soothing gesture. So that's interesting. That's another one where he's leaking information around a mention of his past. All right. This clip, let me rewind that. This smile is to me exaggerated. Okay. Anyway, it's an exaggerated face. And I get the impression he's telling a story here too, because when he tells stories, he frequently will mime or act out into slight exaggeration the expressions or motions that the subjects of his story are doing. And that's not uncommon. That's actually probably more an indicative of truth than of deception, or just trying to hide something, because otherwise you'd be making up motions, and that's not even something that typically we think about doing when we're telling a lie. So if anything, when he is doing motions for the stories, that is a stronger indicator that at least that part of the story is true. So let's watch and listen again.
They're smiling, holding me down. The doctor reached under the table.
Okay. Again, I don't know what the rest of that context was, and maybe I should leave in the comments if I should include additional context for some of these clips, or if I should just react to sound. I remember why I wanted to show this clip. Watch how quickly the fake smile comes off his face. Typically, facial interactions or expressions that are genuine will slowly fade off the face over time. When they come and go at the flip of a switch, that is more likely of an indication of deception. However, we know he's telling a story here based on the verbiage that he uses in the audio clip. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't necessarily indicate he is lying about this particular story. If anything, that just confirms to me that he is telling a story, because he is putting on the expression of whoever they are, and it comes off his face when he's Kent again, when he's smiling as they and then not smiling when he's Kent. So that to me just confirms that he was telling a story.
Holding me down. The doctor reached under the table.
Still kind of disturbing. Oh yeah, this clip. We don't want to see any more skin than you're already showing, Ken. There are several things in this clip. The showing off of the elbow thing, I think it's weird, but I don't think it's necessarily of note. The things to me, again, because again, that's a big gesture, that's planned, that's rehearsed. Like, he goes right to a specific spot. That's intentional. So whatever he's doing with his sleeve and his elbow, that's intentional. However, there are a couple of things in this clip that were not intentional, I believe. Again, disclaimer, these are all my opinions. I represent only my opinions, and these are just the thoughts that I have when I see these, and I'm a talking head on the internet. The first one, that lip retraction and groom. We've seen before that he is comfortable in front of audiences. In the first video we watched, he only takes a drink twice in 45 minutes. He doesn't frequently need to lick his lips because they're drying up because he's talking. Like, he's conditioned to speak this much. His fight or flight response is not triggering a mucous membrane type of thing. The lip retraction is versus being just lips pursed. So versus the compression is more associated with suppressing an opinion. Like, if you're talking to someone and they say something you don't disagree with, you might be pursing your lips and suppressing your opinion. Versus the full retraction, which is what he did, there's uncertainty and the need for reassurance. This is an indicator of, it's not a guarantee. There are no guarantees or blanket statements in body language. In fact, that's probably the only blanket statement, is that there are no blanket statements. So for whatever he's talking about here, he may have rehearsed the whole sleeve and elbow thing, but I'm not sure how confident he is with the actual thing that he's going to be talking about. So the uncertainty could be around whatever it is, like around the topic itself, like what he's talking about, or it could be around the verbiage. Maybe this is a new segment in his seminar and he hasn't done it before an audience yet. Something like that. The other thing that I think is really interesting, because it's another mouth related indication. He compresses there. He wipes his mouth. This is a man he's well dressed. He's groomed his hair. He's ready to be in front of an audience. He swipes his hand across his face. He's hiding. He's putting up a barrier, a physical barrier in front of his mouth. This is significant. This isn't something, he doesn't typically cover his face. I don't know if, again, this is an exaggeration from a story, maybe, because this isn't a subtle gesture like the first retraction. This is a big swipe across his mouth. I'm not sure what to make of this. So leave in the comments what you think that gesture might be for him, whether he's telling us part of a story and it's incorporated into the story. It doesn't seem like any of his other expressions around that are large and planned or rehearsed. So it leads me to believe it might be a one-off. But it's a really striking one-off. So let's listen to the audio and see what we get.
I noticed something interesting. In my left elbow, I discovered some cinders and tar that they missed. They're still there right now. If you think I'm going to go back to the hospital.
So he's telling a story, but it's a story about him and something that had happened. I imagine the doctors he mentioned in the other clip are related to the hospital in this clip. But either way, he's got full-on lip retraction before he talks about what's supposedly in his elbow. And then we've got this. I don't even know what to call that. Besides maybe defensive or barrier gesture. A lot of times people will put up barriers when they're not being completely honest. It is usually unconscious, and it is defensive. That could be what we're seeing here. So again, leave in the comments what you think that is. Let's move on. Okay, that was fast. I'm pretty sure I remember. My notes are out of order. So we have a little shoulder shrug. We have a double shoulder shrug. So when it's symmetrical like that, it's typically more honest. A single shoulder shrug or a single eyebrow raise. It's hard to tell if this is a single eyebrow raise here or if it is just the way he's standing with the camera. Because like if I adjust my face, it looks like one brow is higher than the other. You know what I mean? So like it could be just a perspective of the camera thing, but that shoulder shrug is there. Let's watch real quick. It's just a little one.
I mean, is he big enough to tell you what to do and you'll do it?
Shrugging. So is he big enough? It's almost like it's almost a request for approval. It's almost a like a shrugging off of indecision to me. Like, is he big enough that you're gonna do it? I imagine he might be talking about God in this clip, possibly. Maybe a big person. But either way, I think that wasn't a leak. That was intentional. And that was, I don't know. Why do we shrug? I don't know. We're brushing stuff off. We're physically letting go of some weight that we're carrying. I wonder how Kent kind of envisions where he is in the seminar with, what that shrug represents for him. So that one I included because again, it's more honest than it's not. So whatever he's talking about here, probably telling the truth or what he perceives to be the truth, because we know that that's his reality doesn't always match everybody else's reality. So let's watch the next one. This one, so I was raised in a Christian denomination. I won't say which one because I'm not going to go into that. But this took me a minute to figure out what he was doing. He's praying. That's not how I prayed, y'all. But the eyes are closed and the hands are clasped. In any other context, that is typically indicative of prayer, of supplication, requests, to a higher authority. So, regardless of this weird stance, I imagine he's tilted back and he's pointing his chest essentially up to the heavens. So he is facing his body up to God while he talks to him. Why not his eyes? That's a whole thing. I don't know. People do that when they're praying. I prayed with my eyes open. I don't know why. I guess maybe if you get distracted, you close your eyes. I don't know. Anyway, let's listen to the audio clip. I do think, I want to interject real quick. I do think because of the exaggeration of his facial expressions, here. I do think he's telling a story about a time he was praying, and he's doing the prayer as an example.
As they crunch the lunch. Amen.
Ooh, shoot, I went to the wrong clip. Okay.
And you'll do it. Dear Lord, bless the bunch as they crunch the lunch. Amen. I mean, you just expect God to be there, don't you?
Yeah, so he kind of was, I don't know if that was a story or just an example of something that he was exaggerating, but it wasn't a genuine prayer from that moment. Again, because of the different facial expressions that he had around that. That's one reason why we can't take body language out of context, because if I had just shown you just that clip with nothing else around it, it would look like Hovind prays weird or something. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have the context. And that is why I am trying to get both his baseline, when he's telling the truth, when something might be interesting, and when something might be deceptive or is definitely deceptive, because we need the whole picture to understand the individual pieces of it. This is some more lip grooming. He does a lot. So there's his lemon. He's like sucking on a lemon. We'll watch it again. It's really quick. Yeah, it's a quick retraction, a quick licking of the lips. It's the second time in this, this video, in this seminar, when we didn't see it in his other seminar at all. We didn't see it at all in his baseline. So to me, it's still significant. That's not to say we can't add things to his baseline later. For instance, like I didn't even keep track of the palm in, palm out counting. He does both so many times, and in this one he is more actively using both his right and left hand more interchangeably, more equally. So that is kind of more baseline that I called out last time, that I'm seeing again this time, and I'm not going to bother with because it's baseline. The lip licking right now for me, though, is still not really baseline. It is still kind of a gesture or expression, especially because there aren't, we want to see, clusters of things to corroborate. And when something kind of stands out and we have an anomaly, that's where I want to dig a little deeper and where I wonder what's going on. So let's listen to this clip. Or watch it first.
I'd walk up to some friend of mine and I would say,
walk up to a friend. That context doesn't really help. If anything, it confuses me more. Because is he licking his lips when he walks up to his friend? Or is he licking his lips because he's trying to figure out what to say next? Is he trying to buy some time? Is he thinking? I don't know. It is almost like he is sucking on a lemon, or he's taken a bite of something he doesn't like the taste of. So maybe in the context of whatever this is, he's not happy with the subject that he's going to talk to his friend about. Maybe. It's a good theory as any, I guess. But either way, like I'm pretty sure he either doesn't like the topic, or he doesn't like that he is having to talk to his friend about the topic. So even though it's a story, and it is kind of a rehearsed gesture, I don't think that particular one is necessarily a leak or is necessarily deceptive. I think there's something around the topic with the friend there. Okay. There's a couple of things in here. The first one that I want to so the whole thing, I want to watch his eyebrows throughout this whole part. They're pretty still when normally he is expressive with his eyebrows and normally has them up in requests for approval, except for here at the end. It's asymmetrical. His left eyebrow on this side, you can't. Okay. His left eyebrow goes up, and it goes up a significantly longer distance amount, an increased amount. His right eyebrow does eventually go up, but it's well after the left eyebrow does. And as far as we've seen with his baseline, when he's consistent, it's both eyebrows at the same time. So there's something significant here with the one eyebrow going up. Yeah, let's listen.
He doesn't know nothing about chemistry. He's never even been to kindergarten. His whole body is only that big. His brain is even smaller. All he knows is if somebody bites you, squirt them. They'll leave.
I don't know what he's talking about here. When it comes to asymmetrical gestures, the indication is typically one of contempt or disgust or I don't know, otherwise some other negative thought process towards the recipient of the asymmetrical gesture or who it's indicated for. So like a one eyebrow lift, I do it a lot when I hear something that I don't know is true or it sounds suspicious to me. I wonder who or what Kent is talking about. It may be a bug. There were some slides that he had up of a bug that's potentially squirted something. The whole seminar is about how Kent believes that there is a fire-breathing dragon mentioned in the Bible and that they were real and on Earth at some point. It could be related to the bug. I don't know. But either way, the shift in grammar to he doesn't know nothing, he's only that big and his brain is even smaller, these are all very negative things that he is saying about the subject. I wonder if the subject just isn't held in a high regard in Kent's mind, and that's why that eyebrow comes up first. Either that, or he's not even sure of the information that he's giving, which I hesitate to even mention because based on, more recent Kent Hovind videos that we've seen, he's overly confident in the things that he says, even if they're not true, even if they've been debunked millions of times by lots of very smart people and, science and facts. So I hesitate to say that he's not sure that what he's saying is true. And that's and I lean more towards he doesn't have a high opinion of what it is he's talking about or who it is he's talking about. If it's that bug from that slide, I wonder if Kent just doesn't like bugs. He likes dinosaurs. Those aren't bugs. I don't like bugs. I had to kill a spider the other day and I was not happy about it. I wanted it to stick around and eat the other bugs, but it was a big one and it was in the house. So I had to do it. There was no other choice. It was that or move, and I can't afford to move. So anyway, next clip. This one, he is not very expressive. He uses his hands a little bit. He's counting. Again, that's part of his baseline. His eyebrows do not move much. His mouth doesn't move much. And when he does move, so this smile, remember how in the last video we talked about, we saw one smile that didn't take up his whole face like some of the other more genuine smiles did. The thing with this one though is it slowly fades off of his face. It doesn't just come off like when he was putting on the smile in the story earlier with the nurses. It comes down slowly. So I think that's genuine. But I don't think there's a ton of confidence there, or he's at least not trying to project confidence there. And that's interesting to me. We got another single eyebrow raise. Watch his eyebrow. Yeah. So again, disdain, disgust, contempt.
God's done. Conversation over, Job. Why did God leave Job with that thought right there? I think it's because this is the problem Job had all along. Job was a good, godly man, but he was proud. Same problem a lot of us have, folks.
Same problem Kent Hovind definitely has.
Maybe you're good, maybe you're smart, maybe you're rich, maybe you're proud.
This is that smile that fades slowly. Or the other one was, but yeah. Maybe he is aware of a self-own there. Let's move on. This one I'm undecided. I'm undecided if it's a leaked gesture or if it's planned. Because the rest of his face, he's kind of scrunched it up. It's exaggerated. Usually when you're cleaning your eye, it's like a swipe across or like a little like dig in the corner there. Like he's like rubbing hard in his eye here and his mouth is open. This is taking up his whole face. So I believe that this grooming gesture is rehearsed, part of a story, practiced, something else. I don't get the sense that this is... I don't get the sense he suddenly needed to scratch his eye in the middle of the seminar. So let's listen in.
He said, well.
He said, well. He's imitating someone doing that or how he imagines someone doing that. So again, that was what I thought it was. It was purposefully exaggerated. And it's good to have these where he's intentionally doing these self-grooming gestures, self-soothing gestures, because then when it slips out and it's more subtle, then we know when they are unplanned and when they are genuine to him and not to who he's telling a story about. Okay. This next part is difficult, especially, well, it's difficult for a lot of reasons. I will get into why this was difficult for me specifically, and then we'll move on. There's going to be less body language analyzing here and more just analyzing what's being said. So grab your comfort substance. Kent believes in spanking. He fully admits that he spanked his kids. This is the story that we're going to hear next. I was spanked as a child. My siblings were spanked as children. I imagine their parents spanked them. I haven't specifically asked, but it's a family tradition in many families. I have not heard of a case of spanking showing up spontaneously as a form of discipline in a family whose parents did not get spanked. So people who spank their kids were spanked as kids. Most likely, I'm speaking in generalizations. There are obviously going to be outliers. I'm not talking about those outliers. I'm talking about general population, majority of the statistical results, that kind of thing. I have spanked my kids in the past. Not very often. I didn't like doing it. And as soon as I realized that the only time it was happening was when I was angry, I stopped. I was hitting my kids out of anger. And that wasn't who I wanted to be as a parent. That's not who I want to be as a person. Someone who resorts to physical violence out of anger. And I haven't touched them since. And I'm happy to say that I have found better methods of discipline, of speaking to my children as the human beings that they are, who deserve respect. And it is very hard as a parent who has spanked her kids to process the idea that spanking causes irreparable harm. It's a lot to sit with. And I hate how I feel thinking about the potential damage that I could have done to my children, that I likely did do to my children, albeit not for very long and not for very many times, but still. Hitting doesn't work. Spanking doesn't work. It is ineffective at best and mentally and emotionally damaging to the child at worst on permanent levels. I'll include links to articles that I read in preparation for this video that are the sources of where I'm getting a lot of my information, or what I'm forming my opinions on, the data I'm forming my opinions on. Children who are spanked are statistically, well, let me shift that subject. Parents who spank their children are more likely than parents who don't spank their children to continue on and escalate that into domestic violence. Where the data was available, in cases of domestic violence, spanking was more a precursor to the domestic violence than it wasn't. This isn't to say that anybody who spanks their kids is going to move on to domestic violence. This isn't to say that anybody who is the perpetrator of domestic violence definitely hit their kids. Statistically, there's a correlation between the escalation of spanking into domestic violence against the children, against the spouses, or other perceived to be weaker people in the household. Was itchy. Kent talks about spanking his son for being a wiggle worm in the dentist chair because he's afraid of being the dentist. His son in this story is supposedly 7. I have no reason to doubt that aspect of it. I can't. It's hard to listen to his story when he gets into that part. They cut away to the audience, and even in the 90s, when spanking was still very much an okay thing to do in society's eyes, and let me get this straight, spanking's never been okay. It was just violence that was allowed to happen to children. That doesn't make it okay. Society allowed violence against children, and that doesn't make it okay. Again, I've spanked my kids. I don't feel good about it. I stopped doing it as soon as I realized the harm. Spanking is violence against children, period. Period. So it's hard to listen to Kent essentially brag about spanking his son. And he does brag a little bit later in the story when he tells the dentist, oh, health, education, and welfare, HEW, would be all over me. I'd be in jail forever if I worked for you, basically. The dentist supposedly offers him a job, and he says, oh, no, HEW would throw me in jail forever, which is, I guess, the 90s version, or whatever state he was in version of, like, Child Protective Services or CPS, or maybe it turned into CPS. I don't know. I had to Google what HEW was, and it took a minute to find it. Anyway, he's bragging about this. And because spanking is a family tradition, and because spanking typically is perpetrated by parents who were spanked themselves, we can infer that Kent Hovind was spanked as a child. So his father was in the Marines during World War II. I'm not sure if he was drafted specifically or enlisted or both, or I don't remember how that works from my history books, but either way, he was in the Marines. And the Marines are notoriously set in the toxic masculinity mindset. I don't want to implicate current or previous service members who are wonderful people. I know people who have retired from the Marine Corps, who are lovely people. So I don't want to paint all Marines in this light. I do want to say, though, that statistically, for the Marine Corps, PTSD is one of the most common mental health problems that can occur. And one of the things that PTSD can also trigger in someone who is suffering from it is domestic violence. And they don't follow the same pattern that emotional and physical abusers who are civilians follow. They don't do the isolation. They don't do the love bombing or the, slow build up. When you have someone who has PTSD and goes into a incident of domestic abuse, it's usually quite sudden, and there weren't red flags to see. So that leads me to wonder, with Kent's father being in the Marines in World War II, what are the chances that the chances are high that Kent was spanked? The environment that Kent grew up in was a good setting for domestic violence at the hands of his father. Now, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Chances are high that Marine Corps veterans of World War II suffered from PTSD. Chances are twice as high of veterans with PTSD to have incidents of domestic abuse, than twice as high than in veterans who don't have PTSD. If there were incidents of domestic violence in Kent's house while he grew up, there would be signs like turning to alcoholism, turning to drugs, specifically most likely in the teenage years. And Kent says he's never had a drop of alcohol. What I think happened is his substance to abuse to an unreasonable degree was faith. I think when Kent was younger, the appeal of a heavenly Father who couldn't physically touch you, who had a set list of rules that were laid out, that were clear and easy to follow to win his affection. I think that was too easy. That was too much of a good thing for Kent to pass up. I think instead of alcohol or drugs, Kent turned to the Bible. And he's held on with an iron grip ever since, because if he lets go, his entire world view that he has built around him is gone. His entire method of coping with anything stressful is gone. And if you've ever gone through a situation where you have no more coping mechanisms, or where your main one is taken away, it's scary as hell. And I mean that literally. It is as scary a prospect as going to hell, to lose what feels like everything, and or is everything. Anyway, I think that's why Kent does what he does. I'll have another video on my theory about why he's stuck in the 90s. And that'll be another topic for another day. But for now, let's watch the clip where Kent talks about his son going to the dentist.
Hey, how many of you would be interested if I could save you $50,000? Would anybody like to save $50,000?
I would like to interject. This question gets asked and doesn't get answered again for 20 minutes, after which he's gone through 2 separate stories and some more Bible verses. He needs to structure his seminars better.
Listen carefully and I'll save you some money. When one of my sons was 7 years old, we went to the dentist. And the dentist said, Mr. Hovind, this kid has a cavity. I said, yes, sir, I knew about it. Are you talking about the big one up here, or just one in his tooth?
What a horrible thing to say about your own child. Anyway.
He said, well, just the one in his tooth. The only one we can fix. I said, okay, doc, let's fix it. So the dentist said, now listen, son, you're going to have to sit still. Hold real still. Open your mouth real wide. And I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to give me a shot? Yeah, calm down, calm down. I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to drill the bad stuff out and fill it with silver, and you'll be out of here in no time. No problem. Well, he tried to sit still. But when the dentist pulled out that 12-foot needle and poured in 10 gallons of lidocaine, he freaked out.
I also want to point out here, he's making jokes. 12-foot needle, obviously that's not true. 10 gallons of lidocaine, obviously that's not true. Those are supposed to be jokes.
Lost control. Kicking, screaming. Have you ever seen a kid do that in the dentist chair? Maybe you've done it yourself a time or two. He wanted out of there now.
That wasn't really laughing.
So the doctor called the nurse, and she came in and sat on him, and I sat on him, and the doctor sat on him, and we tried to hold him still, but man, you got to hold real still for that stuff. And finally the dentist was getting all nervous. He said, man, I can't do this. He's got to hold still. I said, Doc, let me take him outside and talk to him for a few minutes. Maybe I can calm him down. We went out to the van, sat in the back seat of the old Chevy van. I said, son, I love you very much. He said, I know, Daddy. I said, son, I told you to sit still. You did not sit still. What happens when you disobey, Daddy? He said, you get a spanking.
He prefaced this with, Daddy loves you. He prefaced violence with, I love you. Because, in my opinion, violence and love are linked inextricably in Kent's mind.
I said, that's correct. Bend over. And boy, did I give him a spanking. It was a doozy. A few minutes later, the smoke is rising off his hind end, and the tears are coming down his cheeks, and the pearls are coming out of his nostrils. I mean, the whole thing. I said, now listen, son, we're going to go back in the dentist office, and you're going to sit in that chair.
They're laughing at the
and if you
snot,
wiggle
not at the
one
spanking.
time, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just calmly going to take you back out to the van and give you 2 spankings like you just got. And then we're going to go back in the dentist office, and if you wiggle, I'm going to bring you back out and give you 3 spankings in a row like you just got. And we're going to go back and forth all day until I get tired. And I played tennis for years, son. I have an excellent forehand smash, as you well know.
I don't know about that.
I don't think I'll get tired for a while. You know, folks, we went back in the dentist's office. That kid sat in a chair, opened his mouth, grabbed the handles, and didn't move a muscle. I don't think he even breathed for 20 minutes. Boy, the doctor drilled it out, filled it up. We were headed out the door. And the dentist said, Mr. Hovind, come here, please. I thought, uh-oh, what did I do now? He said, listen, Mr.
Why would he be in trouble with the dentist? I don't understand, because we have the entire context for this story. Why would he be in trouble with the dentist? I think that's just I think he's just trying to laugh, like get a laugh, elicit a laugh.
Hovind, I don't know what you said to that kid outside, but I'd like you to work for me around here. I said, no, sir, you don't want me working for you around here, man. The HEW would have me locked up the rest of my life.
That's the health education.
You know, the difference, when he was in the dentist chair the second time, he was still scared of the dentist. That had not changed. But something had changed. Now, he was more scared of me.
It's disgusting how genuine that smile is at the idea of his son being that petrified of his own father. Being scared of your caregivers is not a good thing. It does a lot to your mental health and your stability as a human being. It's not okay to be that happy about the fear you have instilled in your child.
Great psychological difference. He's more scared of me than anything in the world. That's the way I wanted it.
Why?
You say, Brother Hovind, how does that save me $50,000? Well, calm down, relax, I'm getting there. I pick up hitchhikers a lot. I used to drive 1,000 miles a week when I first got into Vancouver.
So I included this bit too. There's a couple of things I'm going to stop at. But again, he asked, what if I could save you $50,000? He tells this unrelated story about his son at the dentist, and now we're going to talk about hitchhikers. What is this about? Structure your seminars better, dude. Don't tell long-winded stories. Also, don't hit your family members. Don't hit the people you love.
Now I fly almost all the time. But when I pick up hitchhikers, all the time.
Don't hit hitchhikers either.
One
Don't
guy
hit
like
people.
This guy did one time, and he said, hey, do you mind if I smoke in your car? I said, yes, sir, I do. I got to practically live in my car. And, you know, you're going to get out and the smell's still going to be here, so please don't smoke in my car. He said, oh, okay, no problem. I understand. I said, tell me, sir, how much do cigarettes cost? He said, oh, man, $1.75 a pack. I got my calculator. I said, $1.75.
He's driving and he got out his calculator. Doesn't add up.
I said, how many packs do you smoke a day? He said, oh, 2.5. I said, times 2.5. I said, do you smoke every day? He said, yeah, every day. I said, times every day. I said, how long have you been doing this? He said, oh, 35 years.
Single eyebrow raise again.
Times 35
Contempt,
equals
disdain.
$50,000.
Let's do that math really quick, actually. Let me get my calculator up here. What did he say that was?
$1.75.
$1.75 a pack. 2 packs a day. So $1.75.
I said, how many packs do you smoke a day? He said, oh, 2.5.
2.5.
I said, times 2.5. I said, do you smoke every day? He said, yeah, every day. I said, times
365. We won't count leap years. If there's a small variation in what we get and what Kent got, we'll attribute it to leap years. But he's also supposed to be driving. Okay, so we're up to $1,500.
Every day. I said, how long have you been doing this? He said, oh, 35 years. I said, times 35 equals $50,000.
All right, so we were actually a little high, and that didn't include leap years.
You have spent $50,000 on smoke. You have made your own cloud. You could have bought a brand new Corvette, a couple of Toyotas, Hondas, rollerblades, skateboards. Nope, you decided to buy a cloud instead.
So we have the $50,000. We got where the $50,000 came from. It's going to take him at least another 7 minutes, because that's how much longer is left on my video file, to get there. And I don't think he ever gets there, personally.
And now you are standing here on the street corner with your thumb out, asking me for a ride because you couldn't get your cloud started this morning, could you? I said, you really ought to stop and think that through one more time.
That is really judgmental of Kent, to assume that because this person smokes, they can't afford a car, or the reason that the reason they don't have a car or aren't driving a car in that moment is because they smoke. That's a level of mental gymnastics that make Kent Hovind, because that doesn't compute for me otherwise. There are plenty of people who smoke who have vehicles. Those two things don't correlate.
Spending $50,000 for a cloud is not a smart investment. By the way, $50,000 is a drop in the bucket. Wait till he goes to die from that habit and see what it costs. That's when it's really going to cost a bunch. That's why they want this universal health care.
Why are you taking jabs at universal health care? Also, this is the 90s. Come on. I would like to remind my viewers that the seminar name that I'm watching is Leviathan, the Fire-Breathing Dragon. He's supposed to be talking about dragons in the Bible. And we have gone down on so many winding roads. I don't even know if his audience knows that they're supposed to be hearing about Leviathan.
That's the Ted Kennedy philosophy. I want to drink and cuss and smoke and run around with wild women, and if I get sick, you got to help me pay for it.
That's not what universal health care is.
You know, maybe we'd be smart to do like I do for the last 9 years. We don't have any health insurance.
He has children. They're still living at home at this age. Although when he did go to prison, he absolutely would have had health care.
No health insurance? No. It makes us watch our health, that's for sure. We don't go to the doctor for every little thing. Suppose nobody...
Why is that a problem? Why is that an issue, to go to the doctor for every little thing? If I have continuous health problems, I should be able to go to the doctor and get those sorted out. If I'm pregnant, I should be able to go to the doctor and say, is this a little thing or a big thing? I should be able to have the doctor tell me if it's a little thing or a big thing. Why is it a problem to see the doctor that often, Kent?
Nobody had health insurance. Prices would drop a lot. An awful lot. I'm not recommending that necessarily, but...
I'm not recommending that necessarily, but... Had an English teacher once who said, but cancels out everything that came before it in a sentence.
The health insurance concerns me a little bit, since over 70% of all health-related problems are self-induced.
I'm going to quote Emma Thorne, citation needed.
Some people have some kind of habit that ends up destroying their health, and they want everybody to help pay for it. Well, look, if you want to destroy your health, that's fine, but I don't want to help pay for it.
You wouldn't. You don't pay taxes anyway, Kent.
That's all. I asked this guy in the car, I said, sir, you spent $50,000 on smoke. I said, how old were you when you smoked the first cigarette? He said, I was about 13. I said, why did you ever smoke the first one?
Maybe I was wrong about his audience. Maybe these folks are like, what does this have to do with Leviathan?
He said, well, I was with my friends. I said, you can stop right there. I know the rest of the story.
We watched that clip earlier.
When you get with dumb friends, you're likely to do something dumb. How many of you ever did something dumb when you were with somebody who was dumb? You get dumb and dumb together, there ain't no telling what's going to happen. Right? The problem that kid had when he was 13 years old, he was more afraid of his friends than he was of God. See, if he had had a good fear of God, when his friend said, hey, would you want to smoke a cigarette? He'd say, oh man, I can't do that. I don't have a mouth. What do you mean you don't have a mouth? What's that? He said, oh, this ain't mine, this is God's. Plus, I couldn't hold the cigarette anyway. I don't have any hands. These aren't mine, these are God's.
This isn't an argument that I ever heard in my Christian denomination, in my church growing up. Is this a thing in other churches? It's really weird to me. And I was born into it and didn't leave up until several years ago as an adult. Not heard this before.
I mean, really, if somebody had the right fear of God, you never would have started that habit. And some of you girls are going to get yourself in trouble because you're more afraid of that boyfriend than you are of God.
This is the other bit of domestic violence that he talks about. And I have so many opinions. You should be afraid of the person that is right in front of you versus the one that's not. Whether or not you believe that they're real or imaginary, the person who is not here is less dangerous than the person that's right in front of you. But Kent wouldn't have to worry about that because I don't know.
And you're going to be out on a date someday, and he's going to say, I want a kiss.
This is so gross.
You're going to say, no. He's going to say, yes. You're going to say, no. He will say, yes. And he will be very persistent, I assure you. That's the way they're made. So, what?
That's really sexist and offensive. I think he wanted a joke there because he cut it off really quick. And he does that when he makes the joke. But nobody laughed.
What you're going to have to do, girls, the only language they speak, when the boy says, I want a kiss, you say, no. He says, yes.
We know, Kent. Say, God.
You want a kiss? Yes. Okay. Close your eyes and pucker up. While he's puckered up, take off your shoe. Keep your eyes closed. Rear back.
Is he
might as well go way back.
Holding for applause or for laughs? I don't know.
If you do it right, you can knock him into next week.
Do not hit people. Don't. Unless it's self-defense, but that wasn't self-defense in this scenario. Don't hit people with shoes or anything else.
When he wakes up, if he wakes up, he will have huge lips out to here. And he will be thinking, for the first time in his teenage life, two thoughts at the same time.
Again, this is really, really rude and sexist, and I don't even know what else. It's very dismissive of teenagers who are very smart. Biologically, their brains aren't done forming yet, and that's not their fault.
He will be thinking, wow, that hurt. And he will be thinking, that's the kind of girl I want to marry.
No! No! No. No, 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 no. Listen, please listen to me, YouTube. If your partner hits you, it is not because they love you. It is because they have something else going on entirely, and you should not stick around to find out what it is. You need to leave. If your partner hits you, leave. I will include some resources in the descriptions. Don't hit your partners. Don't.
If my lips ever
Don't marry people who hit you before you're married.
See, the problem some of you guys have at work, you're afraid to stand up for what's right because you're afraid of your friends. They tell their dirty stories, and you just stand there. You don't
He's really
say them
cocky here,
necessarily,
and
but
it's
you
annoying.
listen. I walked in to buy a tractor for our church one time. This guy that sold the tractors, huge guy, must have been 6'5" or 7, I don't know, he's a giant. Weighed probably 350. Huge guy, owned the company. I walked in ready to spend $5,000 to buy a tractor for our church to mow the grass. And he was on the phone talking to somebody, and he was cussing and screaming and using God's name in vain, and slammed the phone down. Turned around, there I was standing at the counter. Check in hand. He'd been cussing up a blue streak, you know. I said, Bill, I don't appreciate you using my Lord's name in vain. I came in here to spend money at your business, and here you are cussing my God, who I love, and try to serve. He walked over to the counter, looked down at me. There I was, standing under this giant of a guy. He said, thanks for telling me. He said, I didn't realize it was getting that bad. It's getting bad, isn't it? I said, yeah, Bill, it's real bad. Now, you ought to give your heart to the Lord and get saved. Let him start cleaning that mess up you got in there. See, the problem some of you guys have, you're more afraid of your friends than you are of God. If we had a bunch of Christians in this country that feared God above all else, we could make a radical change. Our job is to do what's right. God's job is to worry about the details. You just do what's right. I stop people when I see them drinking and driving. I say, if you get in that car with that can of beer open, I am going to call the police and turn you in. And I get threatened and yelled at and cussed and everything else, and I say, look, you can say anything you want. I'm just telling you, I have to drive on this road, my kids drive on this road, and before I let you run over one of my kids, I am going to report you to the police and have you arrested.
Probably the only thing Kent Hovind has ever said that I agree with. You should do that. If somebody is going to drive drunk and you cannot stop them, report them.
And they can threaten me, they can beat me up, they can do whatever they want, but my job is to do what's right, and God's job is to take care of the details.
Wouldn't the police be taking care of the details in this case, though? Just thought.
But an awful lot of Christians have got a fear of man. And the Bible says the fear of man bringeth a snare.
We haven't talked about the 50,000
What
either.
we need to do is say, God, what do you want? I'll do it. And some people, in their job, have a chance to make a little extra money by doing something wrong. Hey, your job is to do what's right. God's job is to take care of the money. You just do what's right. And that little boy at 13 years of age got a bad habit because he was afraid of his friends instead of God. Job 41:14, who can open the doors of his face, his teeth?
This is where he gets into Leviathan. This is a description of Leviathan from Job, and it's the end of the clip. How does that save $50,000? I don't understand. What if you've never started smoking? That doesn't save you $50,000. Like, what? Calming breaths. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to include a lot of links in the description below, and I'm going to put up a number for domestic abuse line on screen as well. And I will see you in the next video. I'll try and find a more lighthearted one. But in the meantime, be kind, be good humans.